The Matildas have suffered their first loss of the Joe Montemurro era, falling to defeat against Panama 1-0 at Hands Oval in Bunbury. My name is Poletti. Joining me as always is Burke, and it was inevitable that Joe Montemurro was not going to have a 100% undefeated record as Matilda's coach, but I don't think many of us expected the first defeat to come this quickly.
Yeah, probably didn't expect it to come at the hands of Panama either. They're a decent team. Let's not knock them. They came fourth in the last CONCACAF Gold Cup or whatever the hell tournament that is. And that's where the US and Canada and Mexico are big teams in that. So fourth is it's no small feat. They're, a decent team. But yeah, definitely can't say I was expecting that. There were quite a few interesting choices made in this game by both the staff and the players, and the referees. There was some interesting choices made across the board. I'll say that much.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think we'll start with the positives before we get into the nitty gritty of breaking down what happened. The positives: four new Matildas. So we had Adriana Taranto come on as cap 239, replacing Chloe Berryhill in the first lot of substitutions. Then what else have I got here? Then it was Jacinta Gelabadarachi coming on for Emily Gilnick for cap 240. And then Grace Kulamu and Alexia Apostolakis became cap number 241 and cap 242, respectively. In the post-game press conference, Joe Montemurro said that these were planned substitutions, that they were planned debuts, as he wanted to see as many different players and as many different combinations as he could throughout this window. Obviously, with a lot of the squad coming in and coming out after the Slovenia games, this presented a good opportunity to do so. And but I mean, as a positive, four new Matildas. How good is that, Burke?
Yeah, that's really good. It's really good for my long-standing agenda of Alexia Apostolakis being a Matilda. Thank you so much. I am so happy to have collected my dues. Um, I thought Taranto had a great cameo in the game. Probably a bit more than a cameo, actually. She had a good chunk of minutes. Um, I really would like to see more of the other players. I think Jacinta also had a good run around. She looked very lively. Um, yeah, I just want to see more minutes for Apostolakis and Kolamu because you can't really talk about building the relationships and seeing what they have to offer when you give them 5 minutes regular time, which ends up being 12 minutes because there was seven added on at the end of something. So
Yeah.
we didn't really get that much of them. I would like to see more, please. More Alexia Apostolakis, please.
Yeah, I feel that she is definitely one of those players that will have a chance to thrive in international football if she gets her opportunity to do so. There were the 7 minutes of stoppage time in the first half, 6 minutes in the stoppage in the second half, and they came about through a couple of goalkeeper injuries, unfortunately. Yeneth Bailey for Panama went down inside the first minute of the game. There was no update post game from the Panama game, or no real update, I should say, from the post match press conference. Joe Montemurro said of Tani Michael that the substitution was a precaution and that she felt a little bit dizzy afterwards, but they won't really know until probably tomorrow or Monday what's going on. So no real update there either. But it means Chloe Lincoln got some more minutes, and she spoke in the mix zone after the game about anytime you can get Matilda's minutes is a good time, Burke, and it's just unfortunate that it came as a result of an unfortunate collision Tegan Michael was involved in.
Yeah, it was a big hit, huge hit. I think I posted on the bad website that if I had have been hit like that, you would have actually had to call me an ambulance. I would not get up from that. So she's a much better person than me, in a physical sense at least. I'm not that bad of a person. Um, Yeah, it sucks that she had to come out. Obviously, considering her history with concussions, I'm really glad that she felt that she was able to say, actually, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, and get off the pitch, because there's no need to risk it. There's no need to risk it ever. I'm sorry. No game at any stage or point is worth more than your actual literal brain. Some people may disagree with me, but I think that should be considered an objective truth. I'm very glad she exited the game, and I obviously hope that it was the correct precautionary move and that there's nothing more sinister going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I've seen on social media in the last couple of days as well, when you look at the Euros and Atana Bontemps, is literally in hospital a week
Meningitis?
ago, and is
Meningitis.
coming to the field for Spain in the Euros when they're already up 4-0. No one's health is more important than any game of sport. I can understand the desire to want to push through and play it, but sometimes you have to protect the players from themselves, and that is a situation in which Atana Bontemps should not have taken the field. But before I go on a Euros rant, which is not the purpose of this is breaking down Matilda's 1-0 loss to Panama. We'll keep going with some of the positives. Jamila Ranken Burke looked absolutely incredible at left back and shows that maybe the depth isn't as dire as once thought. The idea that maybe pushing Steph Catley into centre back permanently isn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, let's be honest though, for quite a few years it was very scary. It was very scary not to have a Stephanie Catley in your team sheet or on your substitutes. She's not a good sub. That is no shade to Steph Catley. She said that herself. She's not a good substitute player. Um, but yeah, it was very nice to see someone playing in that role and, look quite up to the challenge, which, yeah, is like Steph Catley's shoes, ginormous to fill. Ginormous. So yeah, I was quite impressed with Rankin today. I think overall, out of the back line, the outside backs had really good games between Rankin and Torpy. I think they were both really good. Don't think our centre backs had their best night, though, unfortunately.
No, I mean they can't all be 10 out of 10 sort of nights. But yeah, I mean the last positive I wanted to touch on was the sort of once they conceded the goal, the Matildas looked really good. The almost hit back almost immediately. Chidiac had a goal attempt cleared off the line. And they just looked more focused, more intense, and that was with all the substitutions starting to come after that point as well. And Burke, we were talking pre-record, and you noted Emily Van Egmond came on for Chidiac, that the Matildas almost looked their best for the time that Van Egmond was on the pitch.
Yeah, I think it her substitution that late in the game really brought me back to my first pro presser at the Women's World Cup in 2023 after the Australian game against Ireland, where Van Egmond was also subbed in very late in the game, and I asked Tony Gustafsson at the time why he substituted her on instead of anyone else in defensive mid. And the answer that he gave is, I think, the exact same reason why Joe did the same thing, because she is a veteran. She has the experience. She knows what to do. I think Van Egmond makes a really great impact player for the defensive midfield role. I think she makes a great starting attacking midfield player. But as a substitute going into defensive mid, I think that's always has been a really solid move. And she showed it tonight because you could see the leadership that she brought. You could see just how much more driven, sorry, I know how to talk, the team got once she was on the pitch. They were facing forward, they were moving forward, the passes looked sharper, if anything. She just had a really grounding sort of presence for the team, and I think they were really missing that earlier in the game.
Yeah, it was a performance, and I think
That's a
gives us a
word.
good segue. I think this gives us a good segue to go into some of the negatives to come out of the game. So looking at the first half, the Matildas did not look settled. They looked nervous. They looked kind of like some of them had never played football before at points. It just, like, for me, and I understand like one player has to be like the best player on the field, but given the disparity between what we think the two teams are supposed to be, and I understand some of that might come a little bit from inherent biases against the weaker CONCACAF teams, and I use the weaker there in quotation marks. Riley Tanner, the left wing for Panama, is the best on field in the first half for me. Sort of really showed where the Matildas were at in that first half, Burke.
Yeah, I think the thing you really have to kind of reconcile with is that this team doesn't, like this, as in this literal starting 11, doesn't really have, outside of Hayley Razzo, a long term, recent veteran player. Because obviously, Chloe Berryhill and Emily Gilnick have played major tournaments before, but they've been out of the squad for a very long time. Same with Alex Chidiac. They've been out of the squad for a long time. So there wasn't, and there's only so much Hayley Razzo can do from the left. Was she at left wing? She was doing something.
She
She was very far
she
away.
was floating around
She
left
was
wing, right wing in the first half. Her and Gilnick were
she,
pretty fluid, and
she was too far away to really help them, if that makes sense in the terms of like leadering. Oh my god! Sorry, this game has completely rattled me in terms of leading the team on the pitch. Yeah, first half. The thing about Panama is that they clearly came out with a game plan that very obviously worked, and kudos to them. But most of that plan, it seemed to me, was to just annoy Australia. And there was a lot of jersey pulling, a lot of blatant jersey pulling, which, yeah, obviously frustrated our players very, very quickly. A lot quicker than I think I've seen in quite some time, which again I feel lends to the fact that this squad is not a veteran squad. But these are all things that come with time, with gameplay, with, experience. And you do also have to take into account the fact that Joe's trying to get them to play his way of football, and this is their third game of doing that. And we had pretty different starting lineups for the last two games compared to this one. So,
yeah, Joe talked about that in the post-match press conference, and he said that he re-emphasised the point of that he's pretty clear in where he wants to go, where he wants his football to play, how he wants it to look, and that there was a need to use these games to look at new players, look at new combinations. Otherwise, and this quote stood out a lot to me. Otherwise, it's just pretending to make a change, which I think I don't think it was a shot at anyone per se, but it's very much no. This is substantial. I interpreted it more as no. We're making substantial changes, and we need to do it now while we have the chance, because obviously we've got the Asian Cup coming up. But it's just substantial change doesn't always look the best on the field, and we've seen that this is 3 games under Montemurro, 3 very different starting 11s across these games. In part, players coming in camp, out of camp, injuries, the like. It's very hard to get any sort of consistency, cohesion, and fluidity when you've got so many changes being made on a game-to-game basis. But I think one thing that stood out across these 3 games so far, Burke, has just been how much emphasis that we've had to put on the midfield and how shocking it's looked at times. I think would probably be the best word to use. Like, game 1 against Slovenia, as we talked about when we did our game review, it was almost like, every minute it was, and the ball's been turned over, and the ball's been turned over, and it was a lot more fluid for the second game with an improved midfield performance. But looking at this game, I was getting a lot of flashbacks to the Slovenia game, or the first game, where it was like, and the ball's been turned over, the ball's been turned over. There's no fluidity, no consistency within midfield. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's really the point of this series and probably the next window as well, is just for Joe to kind of get a feel of all of the players available to him and see what they have to offer. Because, I mean, no offense to these players, they're all very good players. But if you put this starting lineup playing the way that they played against a Japan or something in the Asian Cup, that team's getting flattened like 6-0. And again, I don't mean that with disrespect. I mean that to say this is a team that has not played together a lot, if at all. Um, so I guess that's really the point of these, you know, I guess strange looking midfields that don't always work the best way or like the way you'd want them to work or the way you think they can work. Yeah, I guess that's more of the teething issues of getting a new coach that wants to implement a new style of play. You've got to give it all time to work itself out and for everyone to kind of settle into the new sort of roles that Joe wants them to play.
Well, I mean, we saw that against Japan in the She Believes Cup already. That was a much stronger Matildas lineup that just got absolutely run off the park by Japan. I mean, I'd imagine that this sort of system is going to work against the likes of a Japan or South Korea if Montemurro can get it right. But as we keep on touching on, he's running out of time to do that. There's 5, maybe 6 games left before he has to select his Asian Cup squad. One of those comes on Tuesday, which is a very short turnaround from the game we've just watched here on Saturday. I mean, I know that this window was always going to be a challenge for Montemurro, but I just can't get over how bad this midfield has looked at points.
Yeah, is it too early for me to say I'm very scared? Actually, I think I've been saying I'm scared of the Asian Cup for a long time now, so no, it's not too early. That's actually just what I've been saying this whole time. This is not, it's not a runway as much as it is a cliff drop.
Yeah, it's getting closer by the day. 5 games is not a lot of
No.
time. Like that is a tournament campaign for some teams, and we usually would call that a disappointing tournament campaign, given the length of it for a lot of people with the 3 group stage games, a couple of pre-match friendlies, pre-tournament friendlies. I did want to touch on something that make sure I get the name right. Karina said post game in the Panama press conference. That of the takeaway to go into Tuesday's game against the Matildas, it talked about the energy. The other team had no chance to match our energy today. From the first whistle to the end, we brought so much energy and positivity, and it was just unmatched across the field. I mean, that's a pretty damning statement from. Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I get it. But I don't know if I'd call that much jersey pulling a positivity. But that's just me. And obviously, I'm on the other side of the fence. So, of course, I'm not going to describe that as a positivity. Um, but honestly, yeah, Panama were pressing, they were pushing, they were definitely more energetic than us, I would say. Um, and yeah, like I said earlier, they were aiming to frustrate us, and they did. So, yeah, I mean, at the very least, it's a good learning experience for absolutely everyone on the pitch and off the pitch.
Yeah, hopefully Joe Montemurro was able to get what he wanted out of this game, that the side will be able to do their post-match analysis tomorrow, make improvements for Tuesday's game, get a couple of good training sessions under them, try to sort out some of these issues, and hopefully it's an improved performance again on Tuesday, because otherwise I don't know what the reaction to this window as a whole is going to be like. I mean, I know that there are bad faith actors who, results-based analysis, box score analysts, they just want to jump on every negative result, and a 1-0 loss to Panama certainly gives ammunition to that. But 2 losses to Panama?
No, I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can have that. Honestly, I expect we'll see most likely quite a different starting 11 again. Whether it'll be similar to either of the ones from the Slovenia games, don't know, but I'm fairly certain it will be quite different. Because, I mean,
Are there any...
what the hell, why not? Like, it can't get much worse, can it? Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Knock on wood. My bad.
Are there any changes that you want to see made in particular besides Alexia Luckus?
No.
There you go, Joe. That's the only change you're allowed to make is Alexia Luckus
in. Whatever else you need to do is whatever. I would actually like to see more of Grace Kulamu. I think we definitely did not get to see anything near what we should have or could have seen from the two of those. So,
for me, I want to see Jess Nash come in, and I want to see her play a significant amount of game time. I think if there was ever a chance for her to do so in this window, I think this is it. I think given the changes in the between, I guess, the two squads within this camp, having Alexia Luckus, Jess Nash available, having a chance to see what she can do, from the start in a game where she's not being set up to fail against the world number one in the USA.
I think that'd be really nice, actually.
Yes, that's what I want to see. I want to see Jess Nash be given a chance to shine from minute one of a game, and not put into a one and done sort of situation like she was under Tony Gustafsson in 2021. But that will do for this game recap episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network. We will be back after the second game in the Panama window in some way or form. I may not be here, but Burke will be here in all of her glory to give all of her takes. As hopefully the Matildas are heading to a win against Panama to close out the international window. Burke, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you once again. It's always a pleasure.
As always, subscribe if you're not, like this video, share it around. We absolutely want to help grow this channel, and as an opportunity to continue to talk about women's football in Australia. But thank you very much for tuning in today, and enjoy the rest of your day.